No excuses for Miami tonight. They just got to keep winning.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's week 8 of the college football season, and we're previewing every ACC game this weekend. Hello, everyone. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On ACC, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking about each and every game in the ACC for week 8 of college football. But we got to talk a lot about the game that's going on tonight. No, not the later game. We'll talk about Cal and North Carolina later on. No, you got Miami, number 2 ranked team in the country, hosting Louisville at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll talk all about that matchup and more here on today's edition of Locked On ACC. And before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. We got 2 games in the ACC on Friday night. The second, we'll talk about later on in the show, like I just mentioned, with Cal hosting North Carolina at, I believe, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. But the big one is number 2 Miami at home down in Coral Gables taking on Louisville. And last I checked, Miami is a pretty big favorite to get the victory tonight, and rightfully so. FanDuel has Miami as 13.5-point favorites. Again, last time I checked, we all know that odds can shift hour to hour, minute to minute, day by day. But last I checked, 13.5 points for Miami. And with Miami, I got to hand it to them. I have been incredibly impressed with their season so far. It's not just the fact that they're 5-0. I mean, that's great. But I don't know if every 5-0 is created equally. You take a look at Miami's schedule. You take a look at how Miami has beaten its opponents. They have proven through 5 games that they can beat teams in a variety of different ways, and they have passed every test, every hurdle that has been thrown at them. And they were put under fire right away, week 1 against a very quality opponent in Notre Dame, and they beat Notre Dame. And then after that, you get your cupcake win against Bethune-Cookman. Good job, Miami. After that, USF, they come in hot. They come in hungry. They come in thinking that there's an upset possible. Miami puts USF in their place. Then they almost got Billy Napier fired from Florida, but, Florida decided they'll wait a few more weeks before potentially firing him, perhaps after this weekend. Side note, we could have 2 prominent head coaches fired by Sunday, one of which is in Tallahassee. The other, of course, Billy Napier, like I just mentioned. And then after, speaking of Florida State, after the game against Florida, they win the state of Florida by going into Tallahassee in their house, and they took care of Florida State pretty good. And like I mentioned about a minute ago, how Miami can win in a multitude of different ways. They proved that against Florida State. One of the big keys for Florida State heading into that game was, hey, you got to slow down Miami's rushing attack, because if you let Miami run all over you, you literally have 0 chance of winning. And Florida State, for the most part, they contained Miami's rushing attack, but Carson Beck stepped up and had a near flawless performance in that one. 4 touchdowns, no picks. He was phenomenal for Miami. And of course, they play outstanding defense as well. That is a welcome change for what we saw from Miami a year ago. So Miami's key for tonight against Louisville is just keep doing what they're doing. If Miami plays up to their potential, they're not going to lose tonight. Let me be clear on that. Miami is not losing if they can play up to their potential this game and throughout the rest of the regular season. There is not a single team in the ACC that is better than the Miami Hurricanes. But they're going to have to keep proving it week in and week out. Can this year be different for Miami? Honestly, at this point, I think so. I think they will be in Charlotte by the end of the regular season, and they should take care of Louisville pretty good tonight. But let's talk about the Louisville perspective. You know what Louisville is as a program right now? They're a good program under Jeff Brom. Don't get me wrong. I think there are a lot of teams in the country, including the one that I cover in Syracuse, that we would love to be where Louisville is right now. But Louisville is that program. They're that meme of like, come on, do something. Like, are you going to be more than what you are, which is a good team, but just not a great team? Not a team that you take seriously as a contender. A team that you look up on the schedule and say, oh, that's a tough one, but not one at the end of the day that you really think is A, going to be there in Charlotte. They were there actually a few years ago, but actually win when they're in Charlotte. And for Louisville, though, this is a good opportunity. Going on the road, playing against right now the best team in the ACC, and right now the second best team in America by the Associated Press. This is their opportunity to say, we have arrived as a program. We are going to contend in the ACC this season. If you look at Louisville's schedule, if they can get past Miami, they could run the rest of the gauntlet of the ACC. Because if you can beat Miami, you can beat any team in the conference. Now, they don't have much margin for error because they've already dropped a conference game, but that can all go away if they just beat Miami tonight. Louisville has a couple of keys in this one. Number one, they have to protect Miller Moss. Miller Moss is their quarterback. He's had, let's call it an up and down season so far for Louisville. He's had his bright spots, but of course he's also had his low moments as well. If Miller Moss is constantly under siege, constantly under pressure, the odds of Louisville walking away with a victory are next to none. Seriously, you think that Miller Moss, if he gets sacked 5 times and he's pressured a ton, Louisville's going to move the ball much on offense? Probably not, right? I mean, comment your thoughts in the comment section below right now. You think Louisville can win that way? I don't think so. And the odds are also not looking good because Louisville is a team that gives up a lot of pressure and they give up a lot of sacks as well. Louisville's sack rate this season allowed is nearly 8%. That is outside the top 100 nationally. And Miami as a defense, their sack rate is top 40 in the nation. So Miami, in simpler terms, Miami can get to the quarterback pretty good. And Louisville, well, they don't typically protect their quarterback all that much. So not exactly a good start when you're trying to formulate ways for Louisville to possibly come out with a victory tonight. The other key, though, one that might happen because it's the randomness of football, is Louisville has to win the turnover battle. Ironically, Miami has only lost the turnover battle in one game this season. Can you take a guess on the game that I'm referring to? 3, 2, 1. Miami lost the turnover battle to the Florida Gators. That's right. That's the one time that Miami lost the turnover battle, but that's because turnovers, for whatever reason, if you stop a team on 4th down, it's not counted as a turnover. Can someone explain that to me in the comment section, why any stat doesn't count that as a team turnover if you stop a team on 4th down? I don't really understand, but regardless, they technically lost the turnover battle in that game, 1-0. Carson Beck had an interception, which sort of opened the door for Florida maybe to walk away with the win, but Miami's defense was able to step up right after that. I just have a hard time believing that Louisville is going to control the game, that they're going to have the ball the majority of the time. They're going to control the tempo. They're going to win the time of possession, all that. They're going to outgain Miami. I just don't think that that's going to happen, where we're going to walk away from that game thinking that Louisville is the better team. So their way of pulling off an upset is they got to make big plays and they got to win the turnover battle. You can conceivably win a game being outgained by 200 yards. That can happen. You can win a game with losing the time of possession by 10 plus minutes. It's not common, but it does happen because ultimately how many yards you gain and how much you control the ball, while it correlates to how many points you're going to score, doesn't cause how many points you're actually going to score. If Miami starts turning the ball over a ton and Louisville's able to force them into mistakes as well, I should say, that's their path. What do you think is going to happen tonight? Comment your thoughts in the comments section below. I am picking the Miami Hurricanes to win 31-17. They get a nice and tidy home victory, and they move to 6-0 this season, and Louisville is essentially out of ACC title contention. Now, coming up, we'll talk about the rest of the ACC slate here in Week 8, so stick with me here on Locked On ACC. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. And in the ACC for last week, let's pick the Pitt Panthers, and let's go with Mason Heinschel, who delivered in a big way. Mason Heinschel, in the second quarter of this game, he had 2 drives throwing back-to-back interceptions. And for many quarterbacks, that could be a confidence killer. But not for Mason Heinschel, because he comes out in the second half, he leads the Pitt Panthers to 20 second half points, and they get an upset victory in Tallahassee. And Mason Heinschel, his performance was not a fluke. If you've been paying attention to him over these past couple of games now, he looks like the real deal. And just like Mason Heinschel delivered for the Pitt Panthers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading service always has your blind side covered. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and store serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. Locked On ACC. I'm Jackson Holzer. Let's continue talking about Week 8 of the ACC college football season. We just went over Miami against Louisville. That's the big matchup actually happening tonight, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. But there's plenty of other good games this weekend. And I think the second biggest one, the second best game on the schedule for this weekend, how about Duke hosting number 12 Georgia Tech at noon Eastern? Both of these teams enter the matchup 3-0 in the conference. So at this point, they have both established themselves as contenders in the ACC. These are two teams that at the end of the regular season could be playing in Charlotte. In fact, there's a remote possibility that these two teams are going to be playing each other in Charlotte. If Miami were to falter, why not be Duke against Georgia Tech? It could happen. It's within the realm of possibilities, but probably a remote chance that this will end up being the ACC title game. More like it feels like an ACC elimination game. Why? Because the loser of this game drops to 3-1, could conceivably win out the rest of the regular season. Both of these teams could. However, if Miami doesn't trip up and they go run the table in the conference, then one of these teams by default will not be in Charlotte. So it could just end up being the loser of this matchup. And it's fascinating because both of these teams, I'll just be honest with you, Duke fans, Georgia Tech fans, we're going to leave Syracuse out of it, okay? So don't come at me with, oh, he's the host of Syracuse. What does he know? Okay? I'm leaving Syracuse out of it. I don't think either of these teams have really gained my trust just yet. I could talk a little bit about Georgia Tech here because they're 6-0. They're ranked 12th in the country. But Georgia Tech has shown over the past couple of years that they can play up with anyone in the country. The big example, of course, is last year when they went and played Georgia in their house, and it took Georgia 8 overtimes to win that game. In fact, Georgia Tech should have just won that game outright in regulation, but they nearly pulled it off in overtime as well. And of course, this year, beating Clemson, which we still don't know if Clemson is good or not, but that was a pretty big deal, beating Clemson at the buzzer. But they also played down to their competition, like how we saw how they should have lost to Wake Forest. To their credit, they did end up pulling it out, but they probably should have lost that game. Also, they don't stop the run. They have statistically the worst run defense in the ACC. And on top of that, Vegas doesn't even trust Georgia Tech. See, they're ranked 12th in the country. You would think that even being on the road against an unranked Duke team, that they would be favored. But if you actually check the latest FanDuel odds, I checked it on Thursday night, Georgia Tech's an underdog by 1.5 points. So Vegas isn't trusting them yet. It's very interesting that they're not. But I think they're a pretty good team. And when it comes to Duke, they're hot. They've rattled off 3 consecutive victories, but I wouldn't classify any of those 3 teams as being particularly good. NC State, you think they're a good team this year? Not really. They have some nice players. They have some nice pieces, but that's pretty much every team in the ACC. A lot of them have nice players. A lot of them have nice pieces. Are they a good team? Not really. Then they beat Syracuse. Ugh. That was a laugher too, but they beat Syracuse with Ricky Collins, not with Steve Angeli. So it's a little bit different, right? And then, well, to their credit, they go on the road and they beat Cal. And that's not easy going West Coast, but Cal's not exactly an ACC power, right? Do we consider Cal a good team? So yeah, they've rattled off 3 consecutive victories, but not against the greatest competition in the world. And are we going to ignore what happened with Duke before those 3 victories? I don't trust either of these teams, but somebody has got to win. And one of these teams could end up in Charlotte at the end of the season. So as a prediction, I'm going to go with Duke here. I'm going to go with the favored team, even though they are unranked, going up against the 12th best team in America by the AP poll. I am picking Duke to win in a fun, entertaining game by a score of 35-31. I think Duke seems to have found something with freshman running back Nate Shepherd. He has been terrific for the Blue Devils these past few games. Plus, Darian Mensah, he's right up there with Georgia Tech's Haynes King as 2 of the elite quarterbacks in the ACC. And no, I'm not going to start rattling off all the other ACC elite quarterbacks. So Miami fans, if you're still watching or listening, I am not leaving out Carson Beck just to say he's not on that level or anything like that. It's because we don't have all the time to go over every single good ACC quarterback. But regardless, they got a good quarterback. They certainly have the rushing attack with Nate Shepherd in that offensive line to take advantage of that Georgia Tech defense, which statistically the worst rush defense in the ACC. So I'm going to pick Duke to win 35-31. Another very intriguing game is you got Clemson hosting SMU at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Clemson in their season right now, they just need to stack wins. They can't really look anywhere else right now because if they don't do their job, which is go and win their games, then they're not going to even have a remote possibility of sniffing the ACC title game, or dare I say, even an at-large college football playoff bid, which at this point is what a 0.001% chance of even happening that they get in at large, because you look at their schedule, how many more opportunities do they really have combined with how many losses they already have this season? Clemson, they just need wins. That's what they're in the business of right now. They need wins. SMU, very quietly, they're 2-0 in the ACC. They're trying to do the same thing like they did last year, which is just sneak up on everyone as that quiet, good team that nobody really talks about. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the regular season, we say, hold on a minute. SMU sitting there top 2 in the conference once again. They're trying to do the same thing. I'm telling you, my initial feeling is that Clemson is going to beat SMU. And the reason why is because SMU has the worst pass defense in the ACC statistically. And I understand they have actually been better the past 2 games, but you have to consider the competition. Last week, they took on Stanford. Enough said. The week before, they played Syracuse, not with Steve Angeli, with Ricky Collins. Ricky Collins might be the worst current starting quarterback in the ACC, which pains me to say because, of course, I'm the host of Locked On Syracuse. And trust me, watching that game, because I cover Syracuse, I was not impressed with SMU's secondary. There were plenty of moments in that game where Ricky Collins had guys open, but he could not connect with them because, well, through 2 games, he just has not been very good for Syracuse. And if you want more info on Syracuse, you could check out Locked On Syracuse, but this is Locked On ACC. But there is a catch to everything that I am saying right now about this game, because at the time of this recording, I am unsure whether or not Cade Klubnik, the starting quarterback of Clemson, is actually going to play in this game. He suffered an ankle injury in the second half of last week's win for Clemson against Boston College. If he cannot go this weekend, and I'm still iffy on whether or not he will, then the backup is Christopher Vizina, who's got limited experience, but you take a look at his numbers, they're nothing spectacular. So let's put it that way. But regardless, if Cade Klubnik plays, my prediction is that Clemson will win 24-20. So a tight game, a lot of defense in it, because I think Clemson, with their passing attack, they're getting better, but I still don't fully trust them. But they will get some yards this week. But if Cade Klubnik does not play, I think that could swing the outcome of this game. And so I would then pick SMU to win 20-17. So one of those rare instances where I'm making 2 picks on the game, but I think it's valid because I don't know if the starting quarterback is going to play. So if I don't know who the starting quarterback is going to play, I'll pick one outcome with the starting quarterback playing and the other outcome if the starting quarterback is not playing. Regardless of how you feel, comment your thoughts in the comments section below who you have winning this one, Clemson or SMU, and the status of Cade Klubnik. Does that alter your opinion at all? Let me know in the comments section below. Now, coming up, still got plenty of games to talk about here in the ACC, so stick with me here on Locked On ACC. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. That's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for your confidence. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com, which is RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. That's right. Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, I highly suggest most weeks to put that $5 bet on the New York Jets to lose, because they are the New York Jets. But they are playing against the Carolina Panthers this week at home, and it would not surprise me if Carolina had a dud at home and gave the Jets their first victory. So I'd probably stay away from that game. But regardless, most weeks, it's your first bet on FanDuel. Put that $5 on the team that is playing against the New York Jets, and you will be pretty happy. But remember the number one rule: do not bet in favor of the Jets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Let's continue previewing Week 8 of ACC football and give our predictions for each matchup. Let's go to this one. Out west, Saturday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. You got Stanford hosting Florida State. Okay, Florida State fans, real talk. Are you sure you want to win this game? Now, I know you're probably thinking I'm insane for asking that question, but just hear me out for a moment, okay? Real talk. If Florida State loses, and I'm not picking them to lose, but if they do lose, there is a possibility that Mike Norvell, the head coach of Florida State, he gets fired at the end of this game. And if you don't believe me, well, see what just happened at Penn State when they lost to UCLA and Northwestern and dropped to 0-3 in Big Ten play. You cross-reference that to Florida State, it would be 0-4 in the ACC, and they lost to Stanford. Oh boy. I think it would be hilarious, but I can't in good conscience actually pick Stanford to win because they are a bad team. I don't think Florida State's great, but they're significant favorites to win this one. They shouldn't have any problem with it, although Brian Smith over on Locked On Seminoles thinks that there actually is a chance they lose. I'll go with Florida State 34-16. How about that? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Other matchups that we can talk about. I mean, you got Cal versus North Carolina. That's the other game going on tonight. That's at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Look, North Carolina stinks. Last week here on Locked On ACC, I gave you all my thoughts. I think they should just fire Bill Belichick, cut their losses, and just move on. Both parties could win out at the end of the day. UNC is awful. Cal is at home. They stink a little bit less, although they're not a good team. Hence, they stink a little bit less. So I'll go with Cal to win it 28-20. Next up, you got Syracuse hosting Pitt. Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Mason Heinschel has been awesome in 2 starts for the Pitt Panthers. And he should have an absolute field day against this Syracuse defense. The Syracuse defense, it does not exist. I don't think they actually are on the field at times. And again, it pains me to say because I'm the host of Locked On Syracuse and I'm an alum of the school. Like, I am biased. I want Syracuse to win every game. Sorry, because you're probably not a Syracuse fan that's watching or listening to this right now, and that's okay. But I want my team to beat your team. And I want Syracuse to beat the Pitt Panthers. But there is no way, after what we have seen the past couple of games from Syracuse, that I'm going to pick Syracuse to beat Pitt after what we've seen with Pitt the past couple of weeks, ever since they've changed to Mason Heinschel? I mean, really? He's been awesome. Nearly flawless out there. Made a couple of mistakes and interceptions, and that's about it against Florida State. Other than that, he was terrific. And he was terrific against Boston College the week before. They got Desmond Reed back in the fold as well. They're outstanding running back. I think Pitt's going to win in a blowout. 38-17 at Syracuse this weekend. Oh, I hate doing that. I hate it. But you know what? I have to be objective. This is Locked On ACC. Maybe I'll say something different on Locked On Syracuse. I'll put my Syracuse colored glasses on. All right. Virginia, Washington State, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. It's a good game, but the stakes are not particularly high for Virginia in this one. This is not a conference game, and it's unlikely, not going to say it's impossible, but it's unlikely that Virginia would be considered by the end of the season, that they would have a resume strong enough to get in as an at-large team. Although if they were to lose this game, those chances would from near zero would actually be 0. They can't just lose to Washington State and expect to get in at large, considering they also have a loss to NC State this season. But that did not count as a conference game for Virginia, which boggles my mind, but it's just the world that we live in, I guess. I don't make the rules. The teams in the ACC and the NCAA make the rules. So it's neither here nor there. Washington State, they're not a very good team, but last week was very interesting because they went on the road against Ole Miss, heavy underdogs, and they nearly pulled it off. And could you imagine if Ole Miss actually lost that game? They would have been knocked out from at-large contention. They would have essentially had to run the table in the SEC, which they might, but oh boy. Regardless, as it relates to this particular matchup this Saturday, I'll take Virginia to win pretty comfortably. I don't think they'll cover 17.5 points, though, so I'll go with Virginia 34-20. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below, of course. And finally, the winner of this week's Somebody Has to Win Bowl goes to Boston College, hosting the UConn Huskies Saturday at noon Eastern. Which team should I pick? Which team are you picking? Comment in the comment section below. I feel like regardless of what team you decide to pick, you're going to look like an idiot. That includes myself. Like, how often are you going to pick Boston College to win a game at this point? They stink. They're awful. They're 1-5 right now. UConn, how many teams actually take UConn seriously? Not many. Maybe if it was basketball, it'd be a little different. But this is football. Should be a close game. FanDuel has Boston College as a slight favorite by 1.5 points. And somebody has to win. That's the point of this game. Neither team is really going anywhere. So I guess I'll go with the home team. I'm unsure who's going to win. So I'll go with the home team, Boston College, by a score of 20-17. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, of course, you could check out all the amazing channels that we have here within the ACC. I myself, Jackson Holzer, host Locked On Syracuse. You can check that out right now when you're done watching or listening to this podcast. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And I will see you all again next Friday.